ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाखया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। So here in these few verses, Vidura is inquiring from Maitre Rishi about the description of character and activities of Swayambhu Manu. So earlier to this, Brahmaji, we know that it was described, he was trying to populate the universe, and in that endeavor, from his body, two different bodies came out. One was of the male, another was of the female. So the male was Swayambhuva Manu and female was his wife, queen. So Vidura was not just satisfied simply by knowing that Brahmaji produced Manu and his wife. He was wanting to know character of Swayambhuva Manu and his activities. What did he do? This is very important. See, because spiritual life for conditioned souls is illuminated by the Lord through his pure devotees. Pure devotees like Arjuna, he played the role of a conditioned soul and showed how he became liberated by the advice of the Supreme Lord as a spiritual master. Parikshit Maharaj showed through his life being conditioned, and then Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken and he was able to come out of that delusion, that attachment, and he became a pure devotee of the Lord. He was a pure devotee, but he acted like a conditioned soul in order to show us the path, how one can become purified. So these are very interesting because everybody in this material world is conditioned to different degrees. And to reach the same goal of pure love of Godhead, one may have to adopt different situations in his life. Somebody may remain brahmachari like Narada. Somebody may become grahastha like Swayambhuva Manu. Somebody may be a king like the Pandavas, Parikshit Maharaj and others. Somebody may be situated as a being low born. Somebody may be born in the family of Asura like Prahlad or Bali Maharaj. But how these different grades of devotees, they achieved perfection in their life is very important for all of us to know. How even though being born in an Asuric family, Prahlad Maharaj became perfect. How Narada, even though born as the son of a maid servant, became perfected in his life. How Swayambhuva Manu, even though given the task of increasing progeny by accepting the wife, being a grahastha, how did he achieve perfection? How Narad Muni, being Akhand Brahmachari, he attained complete perfection. So all these descriptions are very essential for all of us, because we are in different conditions of life. How Bhagavatam is full of, because Bhakti is explained as ahetuki apratihata. It cannot be halted by any kind of material conditions. Not that I am very poverty stricken, how should I practice devotional service? I am born in a very low class family, isn't it? My association is demoniac, how do I practice devotional service? So Bhagavatam is filled with such pastimes of great devotees of the Lord, who in spite of varieties of different conditions achieved perfection in their life. Bhagavatam gives example even of Gajendra, who was in the body of an animal. Even he achieved perfection by surrendering to the Lord. So Prabhupada, in the very beginning, points this out, very important factor of Bhagavatam. How it is a very practical literature where we can find the descriptions of pure devotees of the Lord. So Prabhupada is saying, Srimad Bhagavatam is full of the transcendental topics of the personality of Godhead and His pure devotees. See. In the absolute world, there is no difference in quality between the Supreme Lord and His pure devotee. In fact, not only that, there are examples of devotees, pure devotees like Bharat Maharaj, how he was practicing devotional service with so much determination and how he became slackened, so that we can learn from the example of Bharat Maharaj. We should not repeat the same mistake like Bharat Maharaj, who had to become in his next life, because of slackness in his devotional service, he had to take the birth as a deer. There is example of Ajamila, who may not have been a pure devotee in the beginning, but he was in Sattva Guna. He was worshipping the Supreme Lord Vishnu. But gradually, because of bad association, he fell down. And factually, how the Lord saved him, gave him another chance to become purified, all those examples are also there. So Bhagavatam is filled with such transcendental activities of the Lord and His pure devotees. And Prabhupada says there is no qualitative difference between the two. They are absolute. Otherwise Vidura could have asked, why are you explaining all Brahma and Swayambhuva Manu and his wife, all that? Just tell me about Krishna's glories. See, we should not mistake. In neophyte state we may be thinking there is difference between what we are reading about Pandavas and what we are reading about the Supreme Lord. 10th Canto, where the Lord is dealing with his gopis. Isn't it? No. There is no such difference. So Vidura is asking about the activities of Swayambhuva Manu. How did he rule? How did he produce progeny? How did he achieve perfection? all those things. So, hearing the topics of the Lord and hearing of the character and activities of pure devotees have the same result. So, do not think that it is something different. This will give me something lesser bhakti. So, better let me utilize my time, hear about Krishna, His qualities, how Krishna is so loving. Why should I waste my time in understanding how great Prabhupada is, whatever his activities, isn't it? We may be thinking. But actually there is no such difference. Prabhupada is saying, hearing of character and activities of pure devotees have the same result. What is the same result? Development of devotional service. Actually this is very essential. We should all read about Prabhupada, the pure devotee of the Lord. In the next verse, Vidura qualifies his query. Why am I asking about Swayambhuva Manu? Anyone remembers? What does he say in the next verse? In the verse which we are reading. What is Vidura? How does he qualify his statement? First he wants to know about Swayambhuva Manu. And he says, I want to understand, it is worth hearing. Sublime character and activities, please describe them. I am very eager to hear, because he was a great devotee of the Lord. Next verse, he qualifies why he wants to hear, why we should hear, why all of us should hear character and activities of a pure devotee. Yes, they are always carrying the Supreme Lord in their heart. Not even for a moment they are separate from the Supreme Lord. In their heart they are always carrying the lotus feet of the Lord. That's why, what is a pure devotee called? The pure devotee, he is carrying the Supreme Lord, he is called Tirtha. Why is he called Tirtha? Why a place is called Tirtha? Why any place is called as a Tirtha? Because of the presence of the Supreme Lord. Why Kurukshetra is a Tirtha? Supreme Lord and his activities took place there. So now just imagine, not only that is a Tirtha, wherever the pure devotee is going, that is also Tirtha. Then one may say, that is all right, but don't we have the philosophy, Lord is in everyone's heart, so every place should be Tirtha. No, even though the Lord is in every living entity's heart, they don't realize. Neither the Lord becomes manifest in his activities. Neither that reciprocation, loving reciprocation is there with every living entity. Whereas, for a pure devotee, that loving reciprocation is there. Not even for a moment he is disconnected. He is every moment seeing the lotus feet of the Lord in his heart. See? So, in that sense, wherever the pure devotee is going, that is a Tirtha. So when Prabhupada visited America, even American land, which is supposed to be so degraded, it has become Tirtha. The Tompkins Square Park is a Tirtha. Because Prabhupada was always carrying the Lord within his heart. See, that is what Prabhupada is explaining, the importance of pure devotee. That Prabhupada is saying, it is better to hear of pure devotees than of the Supreme Lord. Because that is the verdict of the Supreme Lord also. Krishna is also thinking, better than glorifying me, you should glorify my devotee. Because one cannot understand the Supreme Lord without understanding his pure devotees. He is the property of his pure devotees. He is sold out to his pure devotees. He has said, I cannot be understood directly. If you want to understand me, then you have to purchase me through my pure devotees. I am already their property. Independently you cannot purchase me. This is very important understanding in Vaishnava philosophy. You see? Once, Prabhupada, he was giving initiations. So, different devotees were there. So, very nicely, there was a devotee by name Phil. So then Prabhupada gave him initiated name Partha Sarthidas. Stanley was there, one more devotee, Stanley. He became Sahadeva Das. Another devotee was Jeff. He became Nakula Das. And then Prabhupada explained, you see, our names are so many. Somebody is Sahadeva, somebody is Partha, somebody is Nakula. But then Prabhupada said, the real common name of all of us is Dasa. So then Prabhupada explains this. Our position is servant of the servant. Just like Shukdev Dasa, Nakula Dasa, Sahadeva Dasa, or Partha Sarthi, or Partha Dasa, whatever. They're all name of the devotees. Sahadeva is a devotee, Nakula is a devotee, isn't it? So, Prabhupada says, our position is servant of the servant. We don't want to become master of master. Material world, it is different. Somebody is master, we want to become his master. Why he is master? I want to become master. This is material position. Spiritual position is, I want to become servant of servant of servant of servant. Prabhupada says 100 times. You see? Then Krishna is pleased. The more we become servant of servant, the more we become advanced. It is very difficult to understand from a material standpoint. Here, everyone wants to become master of the master. In spiritual world, they want to become servant of servant. This is a bigger position. So, as we make advancement in spiritual life, we will understand this. You see? So, because the devotees are very dear to the Lord. As Prabhupada explains this in the purport. A pure devotee of the Lord cannot be separated from the lotus feet of the Lord for even a moment. Undoubtedly, the Lord is always within the hearts of all living creature, but they hardly know about it because they are deluded by illusory material energy. See, this is the difference. The Lord is in every living entity's heart, but the living entity is deluded by material energy of the Lord. He has turned away his face from the Lord towards material energy. He is not seeing the Lord, even though the Lord is present in the heart. But a pure devotee of the Lord, constantly is in touch with the Lord. The devotee, however, realizes the presence of the Lord, and therefore they can always see the lotus feet of the Lord within their heart. Such pure devotees of the Lord are as glorious as the Lord. Then in the next, Prabhupada says, in fact, it is recommended by the Lord, they are more worshipable than He Himself. Worship of the devotee is more potent than worship of the Lord. So worship of the devotee of the Lord is more potent than worship of the Lord. That's why you will all see early in the morning, the first worship begins with worship of pure devotee of the Lord. samsara dava nalalida loka. Even before remembering the Lord, we are actually remembering the pure devotee of the Lord. Because his worship is considered by Krishna himself to be more better than his direct worship. Once in Calcutta, where devotees and before they took that Albert Street, that temple, Prabhupada and some of his disciples, they were staying in one rented house. So the landlord of that rented house, he was a Bengali man. So there was a devotee by name Achyutananda. He had become very familiar little with Bengalis. He was learning little bit of Bengali to deal with the people there, and he was earlier the temple president later on in Calcutta. So he met this Bengali gentleman who was also a follower of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So one day what happened, this Achyutananda, he met that landlord, and then the landlord tried to convince him something. He confused him about some philosophy of Krishna consciousness. He gave him one example. He told him, you see, in Bengal, we have Rasgulla. So Rasgulla is one of the very special sweets in Bengal. So then he gave example. He said, you see, milk and sugar, you can compare it to Radha Krishna. Say milk is Krishna and sugar is Radha. But the essence of them is Rasgulla, which is more sweeter. And that is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is greater than both Radha and Krishna. So he was little confused, Achyutananda. So he went to Prabhupada. Prabhupada, this landlord who is a follower of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is telling like this. So then Prabhupada explained. He said, without milk, without sugar, where is Rasgulla? Isn't it? So then Prabhupada said, so originally there is Radha, there is Krishna. There is originally milk and there is sugar. And then that becomes Rasgulla. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, no doubt, Namo Mahavadanyaya. But originally it is Radha and Krishna. Then still he asked, but still Prabhupada, tell me, who is greater? Krishna or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Prabhupada said, none of them. Srimati Radharani is greater. And then he pointed out, so one painting was hanging. So where Radharani is seated on a higher throne and Krishna is pleading before her with folded hands asking for a favor. So he said, you can see for yourself who is greater. And then he pointed out another painting. He said, look at that. So where Krishna was carrying the sandals of Nanda Maharaj. And then he said, Nanda Maharaj is also greater. Nanda Maharaj is also greater than Krishna. And then he said, he made a point. Actually, devotee, he is the greatest. So, the point to understand is, the Lord, he is the property of his devotee. It's only through the pure devotees of the Lord we can understand the position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There is a beautiful verse which appears in Adi Puran. In Adi Puran, Krishna is talking to Arjuna. So there he explains this philosophy very nicely. Krishna is directly telling, if somebody is thinking he is my servant, if somebody is saying I am devotee of Krishna, he is not my devotee. If somebody says, I am devotee of Krishna, he is actually my devotee. So there Krishna explains very clearly. This is how Krishna wants to be related. Krishna doesn't want to be related directly. Krishna wants to be related through his pure devotees. So Krishna says, Ye me bhakta jana partha, na me bhaktas chate janaha. Those who say, those who are claiming, Ye me bhakta jana partha, that I am bhakta of Krishna, I am Krishna's devotee. Name bhakta chate janaha. Such people actually are not my devotees. Mad bhaktanam chaye bhaktas. But those who claim, or those who are actually mad bhaktanam bhakta, who are devotees of my devotee, te me bhakta tamamataha. They are actually my devotees. So we also know that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also gave this understanding that neither we should try to become some master, neither we are some great personality in the society like a sannyasi or great position like a brahmana. These are not our real position. Our real position should be servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna. Anybody remembers that verse? Naham vipro nacha narpatir napi vaishyo na shudro gopi bhartur pad kamalyor Dasa, Dasan, Dasaha. So, that is what, and then Prabhupada in that points out, even if somebody is thinking, forget about if somebody is saying, I am servant of Lalita, I am servant of Vishakha, or I am one of the gopis. Prabhupada says, no. Even that is Mayavadi. If somebody is thinking, I am gopis in the spiritual world, I am serving Krishna, Prabhupada says, even that is Mayavada philosophy. So Prabhupada says, rather we should adopt the position of a devotee like Uddhava. Uddhava was not thinking, let me become a gopi in Vrindavan. He is not aspiring to become a gopi. What is Uddhava aspiring? Uddhava is saying, let me become a grass in Vrindavan. He is not saying, let me become a gopi or manjari in Vrindavan. No. Let me become a grass in Vrindavan so that I can be trampled by the lotus feet of the gopis. That is the position I want life after life. See? So Prabhupada explains that is the position of a devotee of the Lord. So that is how we should be aspiring. So, of course, sometimes we should not misunderstand that and think that so only pure devotee of the Lord, Prabhupada is there, Krishna is there, then what I have to got to do with other devotees at all? I don't have to bother about them. Isn't it? Sometimes that mentality may be there. Prabhupada explains, such a devotee is called as Prakarta Bhakta. One who thinks his spiritual master or Krishna, I am only connected to them. He is a Prakarta Bhakta. So even though we should read, we should understand about the pure devotees of the Lord, that does not mean that we have no proper etiquette or we don't recognize other devotees at all. We should not misunderstand that. Actually, the pure devotee of the Lord, he always considers himself as the lowest. In the material world, everybody is thinking himself to be the greatest. So even among the other devotees, we should be thinking, not that I am higher than him. That's what Prabhupada taught us. Why do we call each other as Prabhu, even though everybody is Dasa? Correct? This is, see how much difference is there. Even though I consider myself as servant, we consider other devotee as master. This is also very important. And Prabhupada, the pure devotee of the Lord, he showed it to the best extent. Actually, he is the master. Spiritual master, we call him, right? He is our master. But Prabhupada never thought like that. He was so humble. That is actually the real position of pure devotee. So once Prabhupada was taking a class about this. He was explaining about these 3 classes of devotees. So in the class he was explaining, Prakarta Bhakta means, material devotee means, he is attached to the deity worship, he is attached to his spiritual master, but he does not bother about any other. Doesn't bother about any other devotees. Doesn't recognize anyone else. He is called as Prakarta Bhakta. Then Prabhupada was explaining, at least we should come to the Madhyama level, where he knows Krishna and he knows devotees related to the Lord. This understanding is very important. Not only I know Krishna, not only I want to become devotee of Krishna, we should recognize others also who are surrendered to the Lord. That is called Madhyama. Of course, he also makes a distinction. He wants to associate with devotees, he wants their association, he wants to serve them. But at the same time, he makes a distinction between devotees and non-devotees. And even among them, he makes a distinction, somebody is innocent, somebody is envious. So, innocent, somebody, he may be non-devotee, but he shows him karuna. He wants to give him Krishna consciousness. Somebody is envious, he avoids him. Then Prabhupada came to the point of explaining about Uttama Bhakta. So Kanishtha, Prakarta Bhakta, then Madhyama, and then Prabhupada explained about Uttama Bhakta. Prabhupada said, Uttama Bhakta is, he thinks, except for me, everybody else is engaged in service of the Lord. He makes no distinction that he is not engaged, he is not engaged. No. He doesn't make a distinction between envious, non-envious, nothing. So Prabhupada was explaining like this. Then after the class, so one devotee asked, and that was Revati Nandan, asked this question. Prabhupada, you must be higher than Paramahamsa. See? And Prabhupada replied, this is in a conversation after the question answer session after the class. No. And Prabhupada is saying, I am lower than you. See? Prabhupada is telling this to his disciple. I am lower than you. And then, I am the lowest of all creatures. I am simply trying to execute the orders of spiritual master, of my spiritual master. That's all. Otherwise, I am the lowest of all creatures. Actually, that is real Paramahamsa. Correct? That's what we know. What is the sign of a Paramahamsa? He thinks, except for me, I am the lowest. Except for me, everyone else is engaged in the service of the Lord. Actually, that is a real Paramahamsa. Even though this is the humility of Prabhupada, but that is a sign of the pure devotee of the Lord. And we are all thinking, I am greater. Isn't it? What is he? He is neophyte. Isn't it? Prabhupada is teaching us how we should deal with devotees. So, it is not that I am there, my spiritual master is there, he is pure devotee, so that is more than enough. Why I require association of other devotees? Correct? Sometimes this question may come. I can read Prabhupada books anywhere. Why do I require association of devotees at all? Why I have to be in temple? I can be outside. I can be reading Prabhupada books. I can be in his association, Vani association. Isn't it? So even this is association of Prabhupada. Prabhupada created this as his body. ISKCON is also his body. It is non-different from him. So you cannot say this is not association of Prabhupada. So we should not remain at the level of Prakarta Bhakta, where we think only my spiritual master and Krishna, and we discriminate or we have no idea about other devotees. We don't recognize, we don't associate. That should not be the idea. And Prabhupada very practically showed also with his own examples how to deal with the devotees. There is another very interesting incident which Prabhupada talks about how we should all think. Prabhupada says we should all think, without mercy of other devotees, I cannot become advanced. You see, Prabhupada is saying, this is how we should think. Without mercy of other devotees, we cannot advance. So, this was in Mayapur. Prabhupada showed to some of his disciples that how pilgrims, when they come to Mayapur, so there he showed one pilgrim, he is trying to bow down his head and catch the feet of another pilgrim, trying to take the dust on his head. And that devotee is trying very hard that he doesn't want to get his feet touched like that. So Prabhupada explained this mentality. So very beautifully he explains. He's saying, as one man comes along the road, another tries to touch his feet. The former shies away from being so honored because he's thinking, Prabhupada is saying, he's thinking, I am not a Vaishnava, I am just an ordinary man. I am simply trying my best to become a Vaishnava. The person who is not allowing his feet to touch, he is thinking, what is this? This person is trying to touch my feet. Who am I? I am just an ordinary man. I am just trying my best to become a Vaishnava. Isn't it? And another person is thinking, on the other hand, the person who is touching his feet, he is thinking, unless he gets the dust of a Vaishnava on his head, he will not be able to advance. And then Prabhupada said, actually, this is a fact. See? Then Prabhupada is saying, this mentality which this devotee is thinking, unless I get dust of his feet on my head, I cannot advance. Prabhupada is saying, actually that is a fact. One has to be blessed by a devotee to become a devotee. One has to be blessed by a devotee to become a devotee. And he who is the servant of the servant of the servant 100 times removed is as good as one who directly serves the Guru. He is as good as one who is directly serving the Guru. So somebody is directly serving the Guru, somebody is 100 times down, he is serving another devotee. Prabhupada is saying it is as good as serving the Guru directly. Then Prabhupada says, if one thinks, because I am a direct servant, I am better than other, he is not a Vaishnava. Because we will find so many devotees who are serving directly Prabhupada, Tamal Krishna Maharaj was serving, like that. So Prabhupada is saying that does not mean that others who are serving the society, who are serving the movement, they are not my direct servant. To offer If one thinks because I am a direct servant, I am better than others, then he is not a Vaishnava. To offer one's respect to Guru and not to his disciple, that is wrong. That is not Vaishnava. One has to be humble and try to serve all Vaishnavas, not some and not others. So that should be our mentality. Not that some I am discriminating, some I am not. So every Vaishnava we should try to serve. That should be actually our mentality. Then one more last incident we will see. How Prabhupada showed with his practical dealings, how in the community of devotees we have to be, how we should deal with proper Vaishnava etiquettes. And we should not think that, Prabhupada is there, Krishna is there, that is more than enough, I don't bother, I don't care about instructions of others. So Prabhupada showed, no, that should not be the idea. So once it so happened, as Prabhupada was taking a morning walk, so one question had been going on in the mind of a devotee for quite a long time. He was harassed by some devotee. So this question had been going on in his mind. So he asked this question to Prabhupada. Prabhupada, how a God brother should treat the God brother with respect to produce more love of Godhead and also between them? So he is asking, because he is seeing that other God brother is not treating me properly. So indirectly he is asking that question. And Prabhupada was very sharp. He was able to understand the mind of his disciples very clearly. So he could understand that this devotee is being harassed by another devotee. He is thinking at least like that I am being harassed. Another devotee is harassing me. So he is asking, how a God brother should treat another God brother with respect to produce more love of Godhead between them. So then Prabhupada is saying, you show example. Prabhupada is asking, you show example. And then Prabhupada suddenly stopped. If other God brother is not treating you well, you treat him well, then it will be all right. See, very practical instruction Prabhupada is saying. It's all very important for all of us. If other God brother, if you are feeling he is not treating me well, Prabhupada is saying, you treat him well, then it will be all right. And then he says the principle behind this. It's not simply Prabhupada is simply saying, why you should deviate? This God brother is not treating me well, so I shall also do. Apani achari Prabhu jivera sikhaye. You treat well. You show the example how to treat his God brother. That is Mahaprabhu's teaching. Trinadapi sunichena tarorapi sahishnuna amanina manadena kirtaniya sadaharihi. So, who is treating me good or bad, I don't want to bother about it. So, we should not bother who is treating me good or bad. Let me become humbler than grass, tolerant than tree, and chant Hare Krishna. You see? So, not that somebody is treating me bad, so I also treat him bad. Then what is the difference between you and him? So, Prabhupada is saying, Apani achare Prabhura jivera sikhaye. With his own acharana, just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was teaching, with our acharana, we should be teachings to others. So, that is what we can see here. Prabhupada is talking about in this purport, that how worship of the devotee is more potent than the worship of the Lord. It is therefore the duty of the transcendental students to hear of pure devotees as explained by similar devotees of the Lord, because one cannot explain about the Lord or his devotees unless one happens to be a pure devotee himself. So, very significant point. Why he is asking, Vidura is asking Maitre Rishi to explain about another devotee, because even about other devotee, not only about the Supreme Lord, even about another devotee, only another devotee can explain. He could not understand even directly, he did not want to understand directly about Swayambhuva Manu. Even about Swayambhuva Manu, he wanted to inquire from Maitreya Rishi. Prabhupada is pointing that out, because not only about the Supreme Lord, even the pure devotees of the Supreme Lord can be described by another devotees of the Lord. So that is the thing he is trying to follow. So we will stop with this. Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.